Welcome to Sitcom Showdown, a podcast that reviews classic sitcom episodes and inducts them into our very own Hall of Fame. As usual, one of us has chosen a sitcom episode and the other guy has no idea what it's going to be. Will they already know it? Will they love it? Can they be convinced that it's worthy? Let's find out on the Sitcom Showdown.
Welcome back to Sitcom Showdown, everyone. Steve here, and Jeff.
Yep, hello, I'm over here.
He's over there. What have we got this time, Jeff? It's your turn.
All right, it's a sitcom I think you know, and in a moment I'll get you to tell me everything you can remember about it.
Oh no.
It's Chance in a Million.
Aha.
By Fagan and Norris.
Yes.
Who are known for other things. Yes, so what we're going to do is, I believe it's the first episode of Series 2, but I'll consult the notes. Yes, it is Series 2, Episode 1, The Taxman Cometh. And this went out on 6th of January 1986. And so before I quiz you on what you remember about Chance in a Million, I'll just go through what they did. So there's one series in 1984, nothing in 1985, which is a bit strange, and then two more series went out in 1986.
What? Two in 86?
Two 6-episode series went out in 1986.
Maybe one was filmed in 85 and never got shown.
Yeah, could be. I don't know what's happening on the background of all of that. 6 episodes in each series for a total of 18. And the DVD I have is from 2010. I don't know if they'd done a release before that or not, because it seems quite late for Chance in a Million.
Yep. Yeah, I would have thought you'd see one in the 2000s.
Yeah. Oh, well, either way, we can get them now. And I'm not sure about streaming, whether Chance in a Million streams anywhere or anything like that. Who knows? Someone will tell us.
Yep.
So what do you remember about Chance in a Million? If you had to explain it to someone else, you know, who are the characters and what's the general setup?
Well, Tom Chance is a jolly, hale fellow who's good fun, but pretty much everyone who comes into contact with him, I think, ends up hating him because he's very prone to bad things happening to himself and those around him. But at the start of the series, he meets a lovely young lady. What's her name, Jeff?
Alison.
And she's willing to put up with Tom's little problems.
His life problem?
Yes, his life problem.
Yes.
Is it problems or just
well, it
big
depends.
problem?
I mean, because sometimes it can work out brilliantly and other times it'll work out horribly.
Yes.
But it wouldn't be much of a disastercom if good things kept on happening to him. So there you go. But usually in this series, bad things happen to bad people, and it works out all right for good people. So that's nice. Okay, so that's a solid description, and I'll elaborate on that. Tom Chance's life is plagued by coincidences, and even his initial meeting with Alison just happened by pure chance, because when he went to the local pub, he went there on a blind date to meet another girl whose name was also Alison. And Alison had gone to catch up with a cousin of hers she hadn't seen since they were tiny kids, so she wouldn't know what he looked like. And his name was Tom, cousin Tom. And so, and you can see what happened there. So, oh man. So that's the coincidence that sparked off their relationship. But Tom's frequent brushes with coincidence lead him to often being arrested for crimes that he did not commit. But the way the circumstances play out, it looks like the evidence can lead to only him, the poor dude. Anyway, it got to the point where all the police are on the first name terms with him.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Sergeant Goff, who's played by Bill Pertwee, who's cousin of John Pertwee, and Bill Pertwee was famous in Dad's Army, of course. He issues orders to all his local force bods to not arrest Tom, no matter how compelling the evidence is, because I guess the amount of investigation and paperwork they then have to go through to find out it wasn't him anyway.
Yep.
That's
some bizarre series of coincidences that bring him to their attention, but there's nothing to it.
Exactly. So this show chronicles the blossoming romance of Tom and Alison. So you'd think, okay, it's written by the same people as the British Empire and some other sitcoms that I'd not seen or heard of. And in the first or second episode of Sitcom Showdown, you called these disastercoms, which I really liked and seized upon. So yes, it's a disastercom, but it's also a romance, which is really nice, I think.
Yeah, I think that adds a good element to it.
It really does. So as their relationship develops, it's fate's throwing all these horrible things at them as they try to build their relationship, and then they get engaged, and eventually they get married. But this is all the things conspiring against them getting married means that they have a few attempts and rah. So that's where we're at, and we'll get through a few of the characters and such. So Tom Chance, the thing you notice about Tom is his speech patterns, and that's what makes him so memorable. And just, he's a physical character as well. So that's played by Simon Callow, and Simon Callow was 35 when he started in the role. And he started on the stage in 1973, and then just over a decade later began this sitcom, and he appeared in the same year that this started, in his first film role, which was in Amadeus. Most people would know Simon Callow from Four Weddings and a Funeral. And what I wasn't aware of while I was looking him up was how many books he's written. Just tons.
Really?
Yeah.
Fiction or non-fiction?
Both. So he's written biographies of Oscar Wilde, Charles Laughton, and Orson Welles. He's done tons of other film and telly, and I enjoyed seeing him recently in Mindhorn, which you and I were going to watch, but we haven't got around to watching it. So I just watched it on my own. Bad luck, buddy. Alison Little.
Hang on before we move on.
Oh, yeah, cool.
You didn't mention anything about drinking pints.
No, I didn't, no.
Are you saving that?
Yes, that's coming up later on. Yeah.
We'll park that for the time being then.
Yeah, along with his speech patterns, everyone remembers him drinking all the pints. So Alison is played by the great Brenda Blethyn. She was 38 when she took on the role of Alison. I always like looking up the ages of people when they take on these roles.
And it's fun until you realise that they're younger.
Yeah.
Because they were younger then than you are now.
Exactly. You think,
then it gets a bit depressing.
Yeah. If I had any acting ambitions, which I don't, I would have been really disappointed. Yeah, so Brenda was 38 when she took on the role, but she'd only started acting in her early 30s when she enrolled in the Guildford School of Acting.
Interesting.
So she must have incredible talent to think, I'll have a bash at acting.
Yep.
And next thing you know, she's winning everything.
Yeah, she's been in stacks, hasn't she?
Oh, man, she totally has. So she rose pretty quickly, obviously, and she won the London Critics Theatre Circle Award for Best Supporting Actress in 1980, which is pretty much almost as soon as she started acting. And then she made her screen debut for the BBC. And then in 96, she got Best Actress in Cannes for the Mike Leigh film Secrets and Lies. And then she scored a BAFTA, a Golden Globe, an Academy Award nomination. But as sitcom-wise, it was nice to find out that Andrew Norris and Richard Fagan made her the main character in a sitcom, which I'd never heard of, called The Labours of Erica. Yeah, we're both pulling I've never seen that face.
Yeah. Let's put it on the list of things to watch.
Oh, very good. Right, which is on our spreadsheet, by the way, that people can access on the Sitcom Showdown Facebook page.
Exactly.
Which lists which ones made the Hall of Fame, which ones didn't, and ones we've got to watch.
Yep.
Okay, well, so that was easy. So in this one, and this is the thing about guest stars in this show, so you got them two, and then each week as they get into a situation, because as you mentioned, he doesn't have a lot of regular friends, so there's not going to be a regular surrounding cast. Because Tom can't hold on to friendships because anyone gets involved with him ends up dead. So anyhow...
You think we're joking, don't you?
Yeah. In this one, Mr. Lewisham the Taxman is a character, and he's played by a bloke called Edwin Richfield, who started appearing in films in 1949, then all through the 50s. He was doing several films a year, then a lot of telly all through the 60s and 70s with main roles, actually, in a fair few.
Okay.
Not just, zipping into an episode of Z-Cars and off he goes, although he did a lot of that as well. So here's the list. He did 2 Doctor Who stories. He did The Sea Devils in 72 with Pertwee, but he also was the main baddie in The Twin Dilemma in 84 with Colin Baker. And if you can remember anything about The Twin Dilemma, which I'm guessing you can't, but it's a planet of giant slugs with mind powers, and so Edwin Richfield was the main baddie in the giant slug costume with the mind powers called Nestor.
Was he a sea devil in the Sea Devils?
I'm going to say he was like the prison dude.
Yeah, it could have been a warder.
Yeah.
Warder?
That sort of thing.
Looking after the master being hypnotised or something?
Yeah, sounds about right. Mr. Wingent is a semi-regular. He's played by Angus Mackay, who's been in One Foot in the Grave, Only Fools and Horses, Minder, which isn't really a sitcom, but Steptoe and Son, plus The Professionals, and he was also Cardinal Barusa in Doctor Who's The Deadly Assassin.
Was he a neighbour? Is he the...
No.
Tom's neighbour? No?
No, he's the...
Librarian?
I think he might work at the library.
Random guesses out.
Yes, or he, as we'll find out, is having an affair with a lady who works at the library. with Alison. Dun, dun, dun.
You know, that's going to get found out.
Oh, yeah. And Barbara, who is a co-worker of Alison's at the library, who's having an affair with Mr. Wingent.
What a coincidence.
Yeah. She's played by Geraldine Gardner, and Chance in a Million was her last acting role as she died of hypothermia less than a year later. At only 37.
Hypothermia?
Yeah. So I presume that's when you get very cold and your body shuts down.
It is. I wonder how that happened.
I don't know. It's a bit of a shame.
Bit of morbid curiosity there.
Yeah. She'd been in a lot of stuff. Fresh Fields, Are You Being Served, The Benny Hill Show, and a regular role in a Roy Clark sitcom I'd not heard of called Rosie. Don't know anything about it.
We're pulling that face again.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we better watch this, and then I'll come back and go through a laboriously huge synopsis, and then we can discuss Chance in a Million.
Awesome.
Cool.
Here I go again. I hear those trumpets blow again. On a glow again. Taking a chance on love. Here I slide again. About to take that ride again. Starry-eyed again. Taking a chance on love.
Local tax office. Want me to go round? No idea what it's for. And then this.
What's that, Tom?
Exam result.
I didn't know you'd taken any exams.
Haven't. Obviously a mistake. Happens to me all the time. I've got a certificate from Heidelberg University once. Told me I could speak English. Vocabulary good, but pronunciation needed some work. Also got distinction in grade 4 ballet.
What have you got this time?
It's O-level Portuguese. Oh, got an F. Failed.
Oh, I am sorry, Tom.
Not really bothered.
I learned Portuguese once.
Really?
Mr. Henstridge from the library wanted to take me there on holiday. Had some friends in Oporto who'd helped him once when his biplane crashed in the 1923 London to Moscow air race.
Really?
But then his piles started up again and we never went.
Yes. A letter from your parents?
I broke the news to them last week that I was moving in here.
Yes, Mother not too worried.
Well, Daddy said she's taken it quite well, considering. Apart from crying softly throughout the day, she gave no sign that her heart was broken. It's what I expected, really. Want some coffee, Tom?
Yes. Wonder why I failed.
Oh, it's not your fault, Tom. She's just a very neurotic woman.
No, O-level Portuguese. Annoying somehow.
Oh, and believe me, Tom, it's not a language one uses very often. I mean, the likelihood of either of us having to speak Portuguese.
Oh, front door. Yeah.
Taking a chance on love.
All right, we're back from watching Chance in a Million, Series 2, Episode 1, The Taxman Cometh, and you pointed out that I neglected to mention which network it was on.
You did. Very neglectful.
Or it was. And then when we saw the Thames Television come up, we went, yes. So, Thames Television, Channel 4, combo. Yes. Anyway, I will launch straight into this enormous synopsis to let you know what's going on. And it's that way with disastercoms, because I guess by their nature, they've got to be quite...
Convoluted.
Yes.
Is that what you were going to say?
I was going to say complex. Okay, so Tom and Alison, who seem to have moved in with each other at Tom's house here at the start of Series 2, having a nice little breakfast in their dressing gowns, and they're opening all the morning mail. So typically, a bunch of humorous items and documents have turned up in the mail, as Tom often will receive just random stuff by mistake. And so this one includes some stockings, results for some O-level Portuguese, which Tom has apparently failed, even though we know full well he's never done it in the first place.
I think it was fishnet stockings, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And some instructions and a catalogue. There's a bit of a mix-up in the conversation there. And that's when you get an insight into Alison's personality. I'll just take a little side note here. So Alison has been heavily sheltered her whole life, and she's a librarian, and she's not meek in attitude or anything, but she doesn't take any crap, but she's not aggressive in any way.
Yep.
And she has always wanted to live a bigger, expanded, more adventurous life.
She's game. She's up for the challenge.
Yeah, that's right. And so now in her 20s, when she's sort of getting free of her parents' influence. And then she meets Tom and the whole world opens up to her. And it's just a magical thing to see, the interaction with these two. Anyhow, the good thing about this whole breakfast thing, and they're opening up all the mail, which includes a summons from the taxman for Tom to come in and see the taxman, is that it allows them to share little stories with each other as new couples do, you know, revealing their background and what happened in life. So I always find them really charming, those little bits. And the doorbell rings and a couple are standing on the doorstep. There's a pregnant young lady and a young man, and they can't speak any English and are in fact Portuguese, which is a coincidence.
Comes on the heels of Alison having shared a story about how what happened? She got involved in a Portuguese situation and she learned. Yeah. And she speaks some Portuguese, right?
Yeah. And Tom can't speak a word of it. And she just finished saying, but don't worry, you know, you're never going to need to speak it. So don't feel bad about getting an F in your Portuguese exam.
You'll never need it, Tom.
So Alison's... You could see that coming a mile high. So this couple have come to Tom's place thinking it's a hotel because the address on their papers is actually Tom's address, but it's not the hotel that they're due to start working at. So it's typical mix-up, and Tom and Alison invite them to come in while they try and sort everything out.
Never does actually get explained how this happens.
No, I think they mentioned a different city, so it could be the right street address and right number, but it's just, you know, they're looking for Manchester rather than whatever suburb Tom's in.
Yep.
So Antonio and Manuela, they're fresh off the boat. They've got no money. They're now completely lost. They don't speak the language, and it turns out they've eloped to get away from Manuela's wicked rich uncle Mateo, who forbade Antonio from marrying her unless he joins the family business. And, you know, there's a bit of backstory there, which we won't go into. But meanwhile, Tom has to go off and meet the taxman, so he can't be late for that appointment. So the taxman, Mr. Lewisham, gives him a grilling about his very unorthodox financial life. Because Tom doesn't seem to work, so how does he survive? And
That's a good question.
Yeah, so it's a good backstory on Tom's life, which I really like in this episode, as he explains that, you know, he's just got some premium bonds and 4 of them haven't paid out, but 6 of them paid him out a certain amount of money, and obviously against odds of 1 trillion to 1. These sorts of things. Anyway, he has to explain all this to the taxman, and you think, well, okay, fine, he's got out of that. And the taxman goes, well, seeing as you're able to support yourself, even though it's in a very unusual way, yes, you will be able to marry my daughter. And Tom's left gobsmacked going, what? I think there's been a bit of a misunderstanding here.
Let's just back this up a bit.
Yeah.
A premium bond, is income from a premium bond not taxable?
It may be taxable. I mean, I don't know anything about the
1980s tax system of the UK.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. I don't know. But, maybe it is, maybe it's not. Depends how he's got his tax structured, I suppose.
All right.
Who can tell?
We'll move on.
Yeah. So Tom does manage to explain, but now he's faced with this "you have to marry my daughter" thing, and he doesn't know what's going on there. And so Mr. Tax Dude explains that, you know, in a nutshell, he's an unhappy father whose detective work in uncovering who got his daughter pregnant has led him mistakenly to Tom. But there is a bit of connection to Tom in that we find out it's Barbara who works at the library with Alison, and it's their boss who has done the naughty deed.
Mr. Wingent.
Mr. Wingent, that's right. So, there we go. Tom tries to tell the taxman he's innocent, and Mr. Lewisham refuses to believe him and says if Tom doesn't marry Barbara on the 15th, he'll be charged with tax evasion to the tune of well over 100,000 pounds, which would have been an awful lot of money in those days.
Yep.
And we're only 8 minutes into the action at this stage, so there's 2 things going on already. So Tom goes back home, and he has the door answered by Antonio, who's now dressed in his complete high-class hotel sort of concierge outfit, who takes Tom's coat and ushers him into the drawing room for drinks. And it's very, very good. So Antonio and Manuela, they have gone into full-on hotel staff mode to keep their game sharp, presumably. And they are brilliantly professional.
Yes, superb.
They really are very good at what they do. Perhaps a bit over-enthusiastic in some ways, which we'll talk about later.
More competent than a certain Spanish waiter.
Oh, no. Yeah. Do you reckon that's why they called the character Manuela? As in tribute to Manuel?
Maybe.
Could be. So Tom has to then explain to Barbara what happened at the tax office and what's happening with this Barbara situation, but they keep getting interrupted by, you know, Antonio will come in and then give them a drink, and then Manuela will come in and then start taking lunch orders and doing all this stuff. So Alison's very annoyed by the Barbara news, and she rings the library, arranging for Barbara to visit them after work to have a serious discussion. So
I don't think Barbara's got the gist of what's going to go down, though. She doesn't give her the heads up, does she?
No, she does not give her the heads up. She just says, come on round, we've got some serious business to discuss. So we cut to Barbara at Tom and Alison's, and so she has had the boss Terence Wingent with her, and it's just because he's driven her there, presumably on the way to take her home.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody knows about this affair, but now Tom and Alison know about it, but they don't know they've been found out.
Yeah.
Terence and Barbara. Are we all keeping track,
rumbled.
everybody? Very good, yeah. They have been rumbled now. So Barbara's talking to Alison alone in a separate room, and they have this whole thing out. And Barbara confesses she's been faking pregnancy to put the pressure on Mr. Wingent, but as we know, her dad thinks it's Tom. So Alison tells Barbara to tell her dad the truth. Now, meanwhile, in the other room, Tom's talking to Mr. Wingent. Tom doesn't know... okay, let's just say what happened rather than theorising. So he's saying, so Barbara works for you, and Mr. Wingent says, yes, that's right. And he goes, well, you might have to do without her for a few weeks because she's pregnant. And so poor old Mr. Wingent's choking on his drink because so after spluttering into his cocktail, we can see he had no idea Barbara was pregnant. And he realises there's a mad dad taxman looking for justice and he could be in very big trouble. So meanwhile, we cut back to where Alison and Barbara are, and Barbara says there is no pregnancy, it's just a ruse, which I think I may have mentioned before. So they all come together, and it's the revealing of the info where you and I as the viewers know all the info, but the characters don't, and so that's quite entertaining.
In the midst of which?
Yes, in the midst of which we hear the doorbell go off and all this racket of the banging on the door, and Tom goes to answer it. He's probably about 4 or 5 drinks in at this stage. Because, they thought, we'll get some nice drinks for the visitors, and Antonio brings in what can only be described as a massive tray of cocktails.
This is absolutely hilarious. It's just Tom and Alison there, and they've gone ahead and made them about
12
at least
to 15.
A dozen.
Yeah.
At least a dozen of these cocktails.
Like pink mud cocktails or something.
Some weird thing. Anyway, Tom's down 3 or 4 of them.
In quick succession.
Succession, so he's,
Yep. And, that's on top of his earlier pint, which he had to,
he's getting limber.
Oh, totally. He's in the zone, and so when he answers the door, but it's also because Tom is unflappable, he opens the door to people holding shotguns all the time. So when he opens the door to 2 men and one of them's holding a shotgun pointed at him, and he just goes, I help you at all, very pleasantly. Anyway, so there's a priest and a bloke with a shotgun, and Tom hears him starting to talk rapidly in very aggressive Portuguese, and Alison's heard this, and then she translates, saying that this chappie with a shotgun is after the scallywag who deflowers young ladies. And of course,
who he's talking about.
Yeah, that's right, because you've got the parallels of Antonio and Manuela, and you've also got Mr. Wingent and Barbara, and Mr. Wingent, he thinks he's the scallywag who deflowers young ladies, and then there's this whole mix-up in which they think Barbara's dad has sent round this dude with the shotgun to put the moves on Wingent and say, marry my daughter.
Yeah, it's not just any hitman.
No.
A hitman that only speaks Portuguese.
For unfathomable reasons.
Shoots not very stealthy.
No.
Knocking on someone's door in plain daylight.
Yeah.
In public with a shotgun.
Oh. Anyway, Uncle Mateo lets off a warning blast to the shotgun, just to show he means business, really. And they've all been herded through into the living room. So you've got Tom, Alison, Barbara and Wingent all standing behind the sofa with their hands in the air. Don't shoot.
Plus the priest.
Yeah, and the priest is off to the side. And then Uncle Mateo, well, I should have just said the shotgun bloke, but we'll reveal it's Uncle Mateo in a minute. And he's just rambling off all these threats. And Alison's having to translate all these threats. And that's quite funny as well. So Barbara and Wingent think the guy is a heavy that's been sent by the tax dad, and so they get engaged on the spot to avoid Wingent getting shot, which they needn't have done, but it's quite funny. They don't know that this is Uncle Mateo looking for Manuela and Antonio. So Uncle Mateo stalks off to find Antonio, leaving Tom, Alison, Barbara and Wingent to toast this new instant engagement. Anyhow, they're all congratulating each other, and then Uncle Mateo soon comes back into the room with Antonio and Manuela, and he's all happy now instead of angry because he's seen that Antonio and Manuela, they're all lawfully married and working and happy, and the little baby's on the way, and
I have to admit, this did confuse me a little bit.
Yeah, it is a bit confusing because the reason he forbade Antonio in the first place is because he wanted him to get into the family drugs business, which isn't illegal drugs, I should point out, just the chemist business. And that's why they ran away. Anyhow, I think perhaps we can assume that in that culture, you know, once they're married, they go, right, you're married now, it's a fait accompli, your family. So we're all happy. The point is that all the tension's been resolved.
It passes by in such a blur that you don't really get the chance to think about it too thoroughly.
Oh, exactly. But Uncle Mateo is really appreciating what Alison and Tom have done for Manuela and Antonio, because, you know, they put these poor people up and helped them out and gave them everything they needed. So he's ultra thankful. And then we remember that Uncle Mateo's... Hey?
He's smothering Tom in kisses. 2 minutes before he was threatening him with a shotgun.
Well, he's a passionate dude. He's temperamental.
You know, these Portuguese?
Yeah. So he's... And obviously, he's ultra rich, Uncle Mateo. So we see... Oh, no, before we go to the next day, we should rewind a bit in that Uncle Mateo has relinquished control of the shotgun at this stage, and Wingent has gone off to put it in a safe place on the hallway, but doesn't realise it's got a hair trigger. And if you set this shotgun down on the floor, anything less than carefully, it's going to go off, which he does, and then the shot goes through the ceiling and into his fiancée Barbara's bum.
Does this cause Manuela to go into labour?
It does. Yes.
Did they actually state that, or...
Let's say, no, they didn't say that, no. But Manuela goes into labour, and then Antonio's freaking out, so they have to deal with that whole thing as well. So there's been, someone got shot, the baby's on the way, and, this will be getting long though, so we better press on. So we cut to the next day. Tom and Alison are at breakfast again, which is a nice little, wrap-up, to mirror the start of the episode. But they're dressed in all these super stylish dressing gowns, and they're surrounded by all this top-class food and champagne and all these things. Elaborate silver serving platters and dishes and all the stuff.
Yep.
And Uncle Mateo, he's almost in hotel clothes. He's got his sleeves rolled up, and he comes in with these beautiful cut flowers, and he gives them to Alison. And all these other gifts he's been showering them with. And the doorbell rings. And it's the tax man, Mr. Lewisham, who's come around to apologise because Barbara has had to call him and say, you've gone after Tom. It's the wrong guy. You better apologise, Dad. So Dad's gone around to Tom's to apologise.
P.S. I'm not pregnant.
Yeah. Mr. Lewisham apologises to Tom and says, all right, it was a bad call on my part and I shouldn't try to pressure you into marrying my daughter. And I was going to apologise about the tax threat as well, but now that I've seen how you live, I can see that you've got some very dodgy sources of income because you're surrounded by all this luxurious material and you appear to have 3 house servants. So I'll see you at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, Mr. Chance. So Alison opens the morning mail after this bit of a poke in the eye after everything was going so well, and she's found in the mail that Tom's O-level in Portuguese was a mistake, and they've got good news that instead of failing, he got an A.
Yay.
Isn't that nice? So they've dovetailed it all perfectly, of course, our writers. So good on them, I say.
That was an effort.
It was a marathon. And so people don't have to listen to me anymore. I'm just going to hand straight over to you, Steve.
Well, I can probably run through a few things. Actually, the notes are a bit of a jumble because they kept on paying off things that they had planted earlier on. One of the things you didn't mention was that Manuela and Antonio had spent their last, whatever the Portuguese equivalent of $1 is, on this live chicken, which they were going to put in a sandwich, which we flew past that joke, but had me scratching my head and laughing. Anyhow, later on when Tom and Alison are preparing themselves for lunch, they're brought in this menu, which is written in Portuguese. And what was on it? Curried goat was one option. Stuffed squid. Now, I don't know how they've gotten their hands on this.
Squid?
Yeah. But
they weren't carrying one with them when they came in.
The last option was fresh chicken.
Yeah. Yep.
That really made me laugh. And then later on, they're talking about how long it's going to be until lunch, and then you hear this... you hear the axe hitting the chopping block, and they say, oh yeah, I think lunch is going to be a little while yet. So that was really good. And then one of the... What do you call those? Aperitifs or...
Oh, the drinkies?
Oh, not the drinks, but the...
Oh, yes. Well, yes.
The little snacks that go with the drinks. There's this whole joke about them being
Bolus de Taurus, something.
Bolus de Taurus.
Little
Is
circular
what
meat.
Antonio describes. Yes, is what Antonio describes them as. And Tom does look up. He's got a Portuguese dictionary. He looks it up, but doesn't tell Mr. Wingent what it is. Anyway, when the uncle comes in with the shotgun and he's making all these threats, he threatens to turn his bolos into
window putty
or something like that. So just another example of them paying off these
earlier things,
which I love.
Oh man.
Some other funny things. Oh, Tom's just been threatened with this £120,000 tax bill, but he's more concerned about his reputation at the cricket club for apparently having gotten this lady pregnant. That was pretty hilarious. I think that's probably all I've got to share. At the moment, I've got a few more things I'll probably come back to, but which you might also have covered.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll just go into a few notes here. So Alison's way of speaking Portuguese, it's very Alison, but it's very funny. There's no real way to describe it, so I might slip a quick clip in.
Easter Ben! Easter Ben! Som pode ficar aqui conosco.
And also it's the facial expressions she pulls when she's speaking to them very slowly and doing it. It's just her voice pattern. More brilliance from Brenda Blethyn, I think. Now, we've got to bring up because Tom's always downing pints in mere seconds, and this has got a terrible example of the trick mug. Now, as a child, when I was watching this, I never twigged to the trick mug, but in the ending scenes where they're having breakfast the next morning with the champagne that Uncle Mateo's got them, Tom's pouring it into the glass, and the director's done a very poor angle here, and you can see him pouring it onto the Perspex thing inside the pint mug. And so there's very little liquid in there. But when you shoot it from the correct angle, of course, it looks like he's downing a whole pint of beer.
Yep. It might also have something to do with the fact that the champagne's a lot lighter in colour than the
that could have something to do with
lager that normally goes in there.
Oh, for sure.
While we're on the subject of the slightly dodgy pint glass shot, there were a couple of little things that offset that a bit. When Alison's up in the bedroom having this serious discussion with Barbara, I just love the way that the bedroom's been put together. You've got all these weird kind of Tom relics, which have presumably come from all over the world, on the wall, and then there's this chest of drawers right behind where they're sitting on the bed, and there's clothes kind of underwear hanging out of the drawers and everything like that.
Oh, really?
I just like that touch.
So Alison's made herself at home?
I'm figuring it's Alison and not Tom, because I think he'd be a very, very orderly person.
Well, yes, and I'm not sure they've consummated their new relationship at this stage.
Yep.
So there you go.
So they're in separate rooms. And another one was, at some point, while all this craziness is going on, you see in the background this priest who hasn't spoken at this point. He's grabbed one of these pink cocktails and he's downing one.
And when he does
speak, a little thing in the background, but it really made me laugh.
Oh, yeah. And he's got this, as we find out, a Liverpudlian accent.
Yep.
I'm from Liverpool. Yeah. And you think, of course, that he's this non-English speaking Portuguese priesty bloke.
The get-up he's wearing certainly gives you that impression.
Oh, yeah. The massive tray of cocktails. Way too many for two people, but Tom doesn't care. He's doing his best. He just starts chucking them down. Mm-hmm. And they're each served with like a slice of lemon. Now he just shoves them back in as well. He's chewing up the whole lot, rind and all.
Yeah. Delivering these lines in a just fantastic way.
Oh, man. It's very good.
It's genius.
Yep. But, what else have you got left over? Anything?
Well, just the way that this is an average day in the life of Tom Chance.
This is an uneventful day in the life of Tom Chance, but yeah.
But it's complete mayhem. But throughout the day, he manages to stay calm and even cheerful. Kind of cheerful all the way through it. And Alison, she's not too flustered by all this stuff that's going on. So it's just funny watching them kind of breeze through these just increasingly crazy situations.
Totally.
So that's all I've got to say about it. It's just fantastically good fun.
Oh, brilliant. All right. Well, on that topic, it's so this is a very low-key episode compared to the other episodes, and it's looking over them all, as I did. It's actually the quietest one, I think, unlike others, which can be a lot of times they'll be out on location because they have to film some sort of mix-up with suitcases or a car chase or someone mistaking this car for that car and all these sorts of things. And as mentioned earlier, it's heavily reliant on guest stars. So Tom and Alison will be out somewhere, they'll get in some sort of mix-up, and that allows them to bring in other actors who are really good. But the problem with that, as opposed to this episode, is in those episodes, you have to spend a lot of time with those characters to build up their story and explain all what their situation is.
Yeah.
And it's really dependent on the guest stars, which can be hit and miss. But overall, it's generally pretty good actors. But with this one, there's not a lot of that. It's set in Tom's house mostly, except for the tax office, and it's all very contained. And you get a lot more Tom and Alison on a per-minute basis in this one, and you get a lot of backstory. So that's why I picked this one. So it's not your prime example of Chance in a Million where everything's going wrong. I mean, it's complicated enough, this one, but others get wilder and wilder. So people should be aware of that. Oh, and they've created a classic character in Tom, and the character of Alison is great as well. And then they've just let these actors go with these characters, and it just works really well. And I think it's a brilliant concept. So most sitcoms have a situation in which the characters are trapped. So if it's Red Dwarf, they're trapped on a ship, da-da-da. So here, instead, Tom can't get any stability or consistency in his life. So, you know, if you're trapped in a situation like It Ain't Our Fault, Mum, that's super stable. You're going to be out in Burma. You're stuck there in this rigid set of circumstances and you can't escape. There's no rigid set of circumstances here. It's just complete chaos all the time. And yet, at the same time, that whole thing is the trap. So it allows you to do a hell of a lot, which is just a brilliant sitcom concept, I think. And so because of his curse with all the coincidences and luck and everything, that's the situation he's trapped in, and yet he's not trapped. I don't know. I hope I've explained that all right. But Alison loves being with Tom, as we mentioned earlier, because his life gets her out of her own rut. And that's all baked into the cake. And as we mentioned at the very beginning, it's also a charming little romance to boot. Yes. Despite all that, it is a full-on disastercom as well. Yes, and so that's my case.
I agree with everything you said.
Yeah. Oh, good. So I'm feeling hopeful at this point. Should we put this episode into the Hall of Fame, Steve?
Yes, definitely. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I agreed with all the points you were making there.
Oh, I'm so pleased. Yep. No, that's good. Excellent. And I hope the listener checks out Chance in a Million if they've not done so.
It's well worth watching.
Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps up this episode of Sitcom Showdown. Thank you for tuning in and downloading. But either way, we'll be back again in around a fortnight with an episode that can't be revealed, or that would spoil it all for me.
I'm not revealing it. In fact, I haven't chosen it yet, so I can't reveal it.
Okay, fair enough. Nothing to reveal. Yes, thanks again, and we'll catch you next time.
Yep. See you, everyone.
Bye. Join us next time on Sitcom Showdown, when we'll be putting another 5-star episode under the microscope. And in the meantime, you can contact us with feedback on Facebook, Twitter @Sitcom Showdown, or by email sitcomshowdown@gmail.com.